Here we are. We're off.
Awesome.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Second Street Marvel. I hope you're all having a good day. Got a great guest here lined up for you all today. I hope all is well. This thing's running really slow today. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Second Street Marvel and the Morning Movie Chat. I hope you're all having a very good day today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. In case this is your first time here, please make sure you're subscribed and click that little bell so you get notifications and all of that good stuff. I talk a lot about comics, movies, and even music on occasion here on the channel. And today we've got a very special guest that we're going to be bringing in onto the Morning Movie Chat. And everybody, this is Stevie J from Stevie J's Reviews. Go ahead and Stevie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. Go ahead
Yeah,
and tell
uh,
everybody about yourself and where they can find you.
yeah. Like Second Street said, the channel name's Stevie J Reviews. As it sounds, I do movie reviews, trailer reactions, and the occasional live stream. So if you want to check it out, yeah, head over there and watch a review or two. I think the latest one I've got up is geez, I just gone blank. You have to forgive me. I've been up for a very long time today.
I,
So anyway, I do have a new video up. Go check it out. I forgot what it is.
no
Must be
problem.
awesome. I forgot what it is.
No problem. I totally understand. In case any of you guys don't know, I am here on the West Coast in the United States, and Stevie J, where is it you from? Where is it you're from?
Yeah, I'm from the east coast of Australia, so it's 1 a.m. here, and yeah, I didn't get up or anything. I've been awake. I actually only got home from work about uh, an hour ago, so
All right.
I have to apologize because I'm trying to set up my uh, Hangouts properly so that I can see what's going on properly. But anyway, that's by the by. Thanks for having me on Second Street Marvel. We've kind of interacted, I think, through chats and live streams and stuff like that, but never actually got on one together. So yeah, this is great.
Yeah, definitely. And I've like I said, I've been trying to find people to come here onto the show so I can add a little bit more spice to the show. It's only so great when you have one person on here flapping their gums. And I've been looking for people to bring here onto the show. Kind of people who know what they're talking about, and that's why I kind of reached out to you. There was several other people who actually gave me your name as well as the fact that I actually kind of had you in mind in the first place as somebody who's pretty well spoken and is pretty knowledgeable in their love of films.
Oh, well, that makes me feel pretty special. I don't know if I deserve that, but that's nice to hear for sure.
Yeah, and well, and the thing is I've seen enough of your reviews and things like that to know that there's some people out there who when a lot of movie reviewers, I mean, they review movies, and I mean, hey, I do the same thing. A lot of us really do. I mean, none of us are really like critics out there, trying to make it in like the critic landscape. But I think there's different levels of people who who know what they're talking about and truly have the love of films, and I can definitely see that when I watch a lot of your reviews. So that's why I decided to make sure to reach out to you and bring you here onto the show.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And yeah, I guess you're right. I'm just doing my best, and I've watched a lot of your stuff as well. And I think I just try to give my opinion in a concise way if I can, and try to make sense because obviously, the audience that I'm going for, that most of us are going for movie reviews, is people that are just looking to find out from somebody relatable, hopefully, what a movie was about, whether it was good, why it was good, and why it wasn't. So hopefully, I do get that across.
Definitely, definitely. I know I've kind of felt that in some of your reviews. And so today we have a topic that one that I always find an interesting one is the fact that there's a lot of actors out there. We get actors that come in through into movies through lots of different venues. I mean, some of them start out at a lot of them start out at like the Disney Channel or Nickelodeon and different way things like that. But then there's like a whole lot of actors that I noticed that a lot of them, a lot of the great actors that I've really noticed start seem like they start doing like comedic type movies and then eventually transition into other types of films. Stretch their wings more as they probably get better roles and get more well known. And then they've a lot of them really end up being some of the best dramatic actors that we have out there. And
Oh,
ca-
absolutely.
case in point, like the best example that I used like on Twitter is Tom Hanks. Now, Tom Hanks, he's been in tons of movies and he's been around for a long time. And I know like some of the ones I remember when I was growing up actually happened to be like Bachelor Party, The Burbs, The Money Pit, and things like
A
that.
league of their own.
Yeah, yeah, League of Their Own, and and then you fast forward about 20 years, and then he's sitting there doing just like these big dramatic pieces, and I can't even remember where it really started with Tom Hanks because I know like Big was one that was kind of a comedy and it was kind of a drama at the same time, and then next thing you know, he's doing things like Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, and hell, Castaway was one hell of a movie,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I know. He kind of well, he did Turner and Hooch as well, which was another like '90s comedy. Um,
yes.
but yeah, you're right. He kind of just went all of a sudden from the comedic roles into the dramatic ones, and he was a success straight away as well. It wasn't like he tried and tried and tried to break into that genre. He literally just jumped in and started just almost straight away winning Oscars. So he yeah, he's a very interesting one to look at. And I'm glad you brought him up. I mean, you already mentioned the Burbs, Turner and Hooch, some of the A League of Their Own, those comedies, and then the dramas. I think some of the best work these guys do is where there's a little bit of comedy even in their dramatic roles. I mean, a lot of his movies don't have any comedy, the dramatic ones, but
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at Robin Williams as well, and although he's definitely more the comedy side, um, some of his movies have a good combination of both. So he's
Right.
got all the humor that we expect from Robin Williams, but also some dramatic elements thrown in there that have either a message or theme they're trying to get across,
Mm-hmm.
or just purely some dramatic scenes. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. It's a good topic.
Definitely, definitely. And so I mean, we've got many great examples. Like you just brought up Robin Williams, Tom Hanks. There's John Candy, who was actually he was one of the best we had. Um, and what is it? What is it to you? What is it that you think that these people? How is it? Do you think that these people develop from going into that into doing these great dramatic roles?
Um, well, I was thinking about this today actually, and I think that not all, but some of these actors, that a lot of them go through film school, and I haven't looked that up. I haven't done my research today, so shame on me. But um, including the comedic actors, so whether they start out as in comedy or they start out doing dramatic movies, they all go through basically the same film school and acting school, that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably do have a base acting skill there, but they've just gone to their first preference, which may have been comedy. And obviously, Robin Williams was a stand-up comedian, but
Yes.
um, I think a lot of the comedic actors have a wider range than just actors in general because they have to generally have a little bit more exaggeration. They've got to get their timing right as well for each scene to make the joke actually, hit the mark and actually really hit that punchline home. So I think that they have to have a slightly wider range than just a normal, everyday kind of actor. So when they transition into the dramatic roles, I think that they just have to tone it down a little bit, but they know how to kind of channel their emotions really well. And I don't know. That's just a thought I had today on it.
No, and I actually agree with you because I noticed the one thing, kind of like you said, like for me, the one thing I really noticed is like comedy has to be probably one of the hardest things to do out there, and I think that may be something that helps some of these actors really develop their chops because like timing, comedy is really all about timing. And
Mm.
especially when you're doing a movie, a lot of
Oh,
it
yeah.
is about is not only about that timing, but then a lot of it comes down to just like little micro expressions that one makes, kind of like you said, when you're on camera, that really helps develop a lot of those things that I think are really beneficial to an actor's uh, skill set.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, I mean, we see a finished product in a movie, which is the final take, obviously.
Right.
But you don't know how many scenes, or sorry, how many takes it's taken them to get that scene, that final scene. So trying to get that perfect timing over and over again. I mean, imagine if you got the facial expressions right, you got the line right, you got everything right, but like a cameraman dropped something in the background, ruined the scene, and you're going to get it perfect again. So I think it does take a special kind of talent.
Yes, definitely, definitely, and um, and it's always so tricky because sometimes there's films out there where I see that I've seen like some movies, and especially you see this in dark comedies where you see like where a movie will make a dramatic shift from being something like somewhat of a comedy to something more dramatic or more serious and taking on a darker tone. And to me, I mean, I think the best example that I can think of, just right off the top of my head, was that movie Observe and Report. I'm not sure. Have you ever seen Observe and Report?
I have, but it was a very long time ago, so I don't remember it well.
Yeah, don't feel bad because I haven't neither, and believe me when I say I didn't really study it for this neither. And that's kind of how I am. I like to just kind of just shoot from the hip, I guess you could say. But in this
Yep.
in this movie, Observe and Report, there's this particular scene, and I remember when I was at the movie theater seeing it for the very first time. And there was like there's a very very distinct scene. It was like a gut punch, like right at the big towards the I don't know, maybe once the first act was over, but you see the two partners working together, which was Seth Rogen and Michael Pena. Um, but they're sitting there going through doing their mall cop thing, being just security guards. And I think there was the scene like they're chasing a kid down in a parking lot, and they smack him upside the head with the skateboard. He falls to the ground. They catch the guy, and then next thing you know, the guy's sitting there shooting up some heroin. And I remember like sitting there like in the movie theater. I was like, "Holy, what what
Where
just
did that come
happened
from?
here?" Yeah, it was like a punch to the gut. I was like, "Oh, like man, like this really took a dramatic turn." And
Yeah, well,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree. I think some of the best comedies actually have a mixture of different genres in them. So obviously they're predominantly comedies, but they have other elements tied into them that just give them a little bit more depth. So like the really good ones that you remember
Mm-hmm.
don't just make you laugh. They also tie a few other little things in there. It may not be something as dramatic as that, like shooting up shooting up heroin or something, but even like Along Came Polly with Ben Stiller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny, it's kind of silly, but it also has some other themes woven into it that make it just a little bit deeper than just superficial laughs. So yeah, I find it interesting. I really find it interesting watching every kind of movie, but particularly ones that are just done cleverly,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Did you see um did you see The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
The secret. I did actually, and I believe did you do a review on that not too long ago?
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Yes.
That's about a month ago or so, or 6 weeks ago. But I rewatched it for the review,
Mm-hmm.
and I remembered the first time I watched it, I remember thinking that it was kind of, I don't know, like I'm a Ben Stiller fan, so I was kind of quirky, kind of cool, okay. But then when I watched it a second time, I actually got a lot more out of it, and it was a lot deeper than I thought. And the way that because Ben Stiller directed that as well,
Mm-hmm.
and the subtleties throughout it were just really well handled, I think. And Kristen Wiig, she's a comedian as well, so you kind of
Yes.
expect those laughs or those gags and stuff, but it didn't really have that. It had some funny little moments, but um, I'd say it was more really of a drama than a comedy, even though it was touted as a comedy. So, and I found that, sorry, just to go back to the topic,
Mm-hmm.
I found that really interesting.
Right.
I didn't notice it until my second watch, but there was all these subtleties through it and great themes, and it actually, it stirred some emotion in me towards the end. So I was a little surprised by that, but yeah, also pleased.
Yeah, definitely, and yeah, I completely agree, and I think some of the things that I've noticed with like a lot of these actors who manage to do this, and like you said, a lot of them do go into like the film school and things like that, and they all, I'm sure they all have different goals and things, but I think one thing that definitely serves these actors well when they're going from doing that dramatic shift from comedy to drama is, I think one thing that definitely serves them all well is the fact of improv. And I think that's something that is probably one of the hardest things to do when you're sitting there doing something, and all of a sudden you got to come up with something on the spot and try to either be funny or make that shift from dramatic to funny or funny to dramatic.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree. The ad libbing is a good point. I think that definitely adds an aspect to the actor's range because when they're ad libbing, it's kind of like being outside your comfort zone. So if they're comfortable with that, then it makes them more comfortable generally in every other scene as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got me thinking too when you mentioned that about Will Smith
Mm-hmm.
starting in Prince of Bel Air. So he started a comedy as well,
Right.
and he transitioned. I think for him it took a little longer because I don't think he quite jumped straight into the action and dramatic roles and was really good. I think he took a little while to warm up to it, but he certainly turned into a very good actor. Um, Obviously in action, but in his dramatic roles as well, like The Pursuit of Happiness, he was really good in that, and many others as well.
Definitely, definitely, and speaking of this whole conversation, it kind of reminds me of speaking of people who are great at making that transition. I've noticed that there are some people out there who have managed to, I don't know, maybe it's not necessarily the people as much as the movies try to walk this line of comedy and drama, and it just seems to not work out so well. And one of the best examples I can think of something like that is that movie. Have you seen the movie Tammy?
No, I haven't.
It's got oh man, why am I blanking on her name? Melissa McCarthy, and it was
Right.
actually believe her husband actually directed this movie, which is Ben
Yeah.
Falcone. And I've noticed these, like Melissa McCarthy, she can be very funny at times. And then I noticed like some of the movies that she does with her husband, and maybe it's just they're just a duo that aren't really, maybe shouldn't be working together as much, or have somebody else on board when they're making these movies. Because I watched the movie Tammy, and um, I'm pretty sure it was Tammy, and she's like this kind of bummy kind of sister, and uh, kind of a deadbeat. And then next thing you know, I believe their mother dies, and like there's this, the whole movie tries to go through these shifts where it's going from funny one second to really dramatic the next second, and then it tries to shift back into funny and back to drama. And for me, it just didn't work out, and I noticed that a lot of the work that they've done together, it just misses the mark of being funny every single time. And I'm not sure if that's due to maybe they're trying to make that shift too much, or maybe they're trying to make too dramatic of a shift or segue into going from being funny and comedic to being too dramatic.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you're definitely right. That when the two of them work together, it doesn't work. As in, it just it feels like there's something missing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that with Melissa McCarthy, if she's really good at ad libbing,
Mm-hmm.
but she needs direction. She needs to be given direction because where she's in films where she's kind of let loose, to
Mhm.
just ad lib and do what she likes. I feel like she starts getting the timing wrong of the jokes. So
Mhm.
a lot of her humor has been that something happens, so the punchline, right? And then she takes one more line to just add to that. So it might be, she says a joke and then she has to explain it just in one sentence, and that actually adds to the comedy. It just makes it funnier because it's kind of that silly, you don't get it, I'm going to explain it kind of comedy.
Right.
Um, but that doesn't work seemingly when she works with her husband because she goes on instead of just having that one extra sentence to explain the joke, she goes on to three, four, five more sentences, and by then you're just kind of face palming, going, "Can you make this end, please?"
Right.
The jokes are meant to be delivered. The punchline, bang, it's funny. Um, and so, like movies I like are in Bridesmaids,
Mhm.
The Heat with Sandra Bullock, I think was good, even though I don't like Paul. What's his name? Paul Feige, because he did Ghostbusters 2016.
Yes.
Um, but no, I definitely agree. When they work together, I think that her humor and her comedy just missed the mark. And I do think it's the direction because in other movies that she's in that are directed well, she seems to hit the mark. And I think that's the director pulling her in and saying, no, no, don't do that. Do
Ri
it this way.
right. Yeah,
You're doing
yeah,
a
I
great job
agree.
and you've got some freedom, but I want you to do it this way.
Yeah, and I think some of that may come down to just the fact that maybe it's because they're husband and wife, and maybe it's a little harder to take constructive criticism, or maybe it's just the fact that they're just kind of there. How would you say? Maybe stroking each other's ego. I guess that's the best way I can put
Mm,
it. At the same time, so there's no real outside influence to help tell them like, hey, like this just doesn't really work.
yeah. Yeah, well, you're probably right. There might not be. It might not be a sort of an argumentative thing. It might be just that they're skipping through a meadow together
Right.
and going, "Oh, where's the humor gone? I can't see any humor here." Oh well, we're happy. So yeah, I don't think the two of them should work together, to be honest, because either option, whatever it is, doesn't have a positive effect on their movies. Um, Talking about her, did you watch Life of the Party? You ever see that?
Life of the party.
She
I don't think I did see
is a
that one.
mom who goes back to college with her daughter.
No, I didn't see that one. I think at some point, and it's great that you brought up that you brought up Ghostbusters 2016. I think at some point I started to kind of give up on Melissa McCarthy. As far as things like that, like I'm glad you brought up Ghostbusters 2016 because like the one thing I'll say about that movie, like I didn't completely dislike the movie. I thought the movie itself was okay. Now the thing is, I know a lot of people would probably definitely agree with like the fact that it's not a good Ghostbusters movie. But I feel like had this movie been a movie that wasn't Ghostbusters, I think it probably would have done a lot better. Had they maybe taken the Ghostbusters part out of it. What do you think about that?
Um, I think it definitely would have been decent. Would it have been good? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
Um,
and see the reason I say that I think it may have been a little bit better had it not been that Ghostbusters is because basically what they did was they took a beloved franchise and I mean they changed it up obviously, but what I mean kind of the way they did it was I think it was presented in a way that a lot of people really didn't like. And to me, I think that was one of its ultimate failings was basically them calling it Ghostbusters when I mean it kind of really wasn't.
yeah, true. Um, do you know what? I'm actually one of the people who really didn't like the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, the jokes felt like they had to be explained too much. There was too much dialogue. And I watched this really, really good video comparing Ghostbusters, the original, 1984 version, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
and the 2016 version. And now, even if you just take the Ghostbusters side out of it, but just comparing two films.
Mm-hmm.
There was a scene in the original where the characters are all in an elevator. They're going up. They haven't tried their proton packs yet, and they're having a little bit of banter about what they think is going to happen when they start using their proton packs because they never used them before.
Right.
Um, but it takes 20 seconds for that scene, and through a few lines and facial expressions, we as the audience understand exactly what they're all feeling and what's going on. And then there's an equivalent scene in Ghostbusters 2016 where they're about to use the proton packs in the alleyway. Remember that scene?
Mm-hmm.
And that scene actually goes for about, I think it was 4 minutes or 5 minutes.
Oh wow.
And and it achieves the same thing. So it doesn't achieve any more, but it goes for 4 or 5 minutes. And I think there's about 20 or 25 lines more than what was in that short 20-second elevator scene. So for me, I just didn't like the way the story was told.
Right. Yeah, and that totally makes sense. And to me, I think it's one of those things like when it comes to that movie, and a lot of and probably even a lot of comedies out there is the same thing, and just even other movies is you get into the movie making process or maybe even the script writing, before you're even shooting is there's a lot of things out there that they look good on paper. It looks good and it sounds funny. You shoot it back and forth to some people and on paper it really sounds good, but by the time you get it translated to screen, it just really falls flat on its face.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I think, and that's where somebody has to have a vision for me. Like, you can kind of feel when movies have been thrown together or they've just slapped ideas up on the board and there's been, say, 3 to 4 people involved all throwing ideas up. I think, that's great and have lots of ideas, but then somebody has to have the overall vision to say, this is how I want it to look. Give me ideas, but in the end, I'm going to decide, and this is the way we're going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because, like you said, there could be a great concept, which I think Ghostbusters 2016 could have been good. Um,
Right.
but I think where they went wrong, I mean, and I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this, but what I was hoping they were going to do with it is do a passing of the torch kind of story. So
Right.
make it connected. Don't make it an outright reboot. Make it connected to Ghostbusters 2. So you got some of the old characters there, like Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, um, and they're actually, it doesn't have to be their kids or anything, but just a new generation of Ghostbusters taking over. And like, I don't care. They could be all women. They could be half half. I don't care who they are. But then they just do that in the first act, have that continuity, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's about building and growing the stories of the new characters and taking them in some new directions, which they would be able to do these days with technology effects, all that kind of stuff. And that would give them a really good launching pad for the story as well. But in the 2016 version we got, they tried to reboot basically the first Ghostbusters movie, and unfortunately they missed the mark on just about everything, trying to compare it to that. So I think they could have joined it together in the first act
Mm-hmm.
and then pushed forward with new material after that, and it would have been quite entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, agree highly with that, really. And again, I think it's really quite a travesty because I mean, like I said, on paper, this movie looks good. I mean, you got Kristen Wiig in there. I mean, she's absolutely hilarious.
Mm.
You got Melissa McCarthy. I mean, she's been funny. And then, of course, obviously, they got. Oh man, why all of a sudden I blanked on her name as well. Uh, the other one, she was from Saturday Night Live too.
Kate
Man,
McKinnon.
yes, Kate McKinnon, which I mean, she is absolutely great. I mean, there for a while. I mean, I think maybe for at least a season, she pretty much carried all of Saturday Night Live, and that was before they went totally political and just started joking about nothing but Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, look, yeah, I think all the actresses were fine
Mm-hmm.
on, on their own, but thrown together and the script, you know, even Kristen Wiig, she is hilarious. I really like her. But yeah, the script to me just it didn't work. It felt disjointed. They all felt like they were trying too hard, and it
Mm-hmm.
was that kind of that feel for Melissa McCarthy as well. Again, I've found a lot of her movies very funny, but it was just taking the jokes to the next level. And I don't know, you know, I don't really find that kind of what's the word for it? I guess potty humor
Mm-hmm.
that funny when it's out of context.
Right.
So I can watch someone, you know, swearing their head off and making telling dirty jokes, but it's got to be sort of in context. And you know, that movie had the queef jokes and all the
Right.
rest of it. No, it didn't do it for me. Like, come up with something more clever than that. That's what I felt when I was watching it.
Yeah, and I'll agree. I'll agree. And we'll go ahead and get some more into this, but I wanted to go ahead and go over this. I went on to, and we'll share our thoughts on this. I reached out to Twitter and put a post on Twitter and asked some different people for their opinions. And one of the people replied here, Nerdy Blurb TV. And in case you guys don't know who Nerdy Blurb TV, you can go find a link to Ryan's channel down in the very bottom of the description on this video. He actually done the intro that I use here on all of my videos. But Ryan from Nerdy Blurb TV says Tom Hanks is a given, but Bruce Willis tends to be forgotten. Not that he's my favorite, but Moonlighting was a very out of the box comedy TV series that no one remembers. Now it's hard to picture Willis cracking a smile. What do you think about that?
Yeah, um, yeah, that's a really good comment.
Yeah, I
I
thought the
think
same thing.
I think after Die Hard, Bruce Willis ended up getting typecast almost into that
Mm-hmm.
hard-faced, stoic action hero.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember watching Moonlighting when I was growing up, and believe me, I was a kid, so it's not like I completely got all of that comedy that was going on in Moonlighting. But I remember that was pretty much my first introduction to Bruce Willis, and I thought the same thing. Like he was absolutely hilarious in that TV show. Um, and then yeah, I think you're right. I think it was pretty much after Die Hard when he kind of started getting typecast, or maybe he just took on more of those kind of roles, which he is actually really good at. And yeah, it seems like we don't get him in as many comedies these days, or you know, just throughout his career as really I'd like to see him in, because I know I seen him on Saturday Night Live one time, and he was absolutely hilarious. And they did this skit called God, what was it called? A boy dance party, and it was absolutely hilarious. And I
Yeah, he's definitely got comedy in him. He's he's been funny in the past in movies and in interviews as well. When you watch interviews with him, he's been quite funny.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like he just got into that genre that he was most successful at and just stuck with it.
yeah, and I can
Just thought,
understand
you
that.
know, I'm making heaps of money. I'm successful. I'll just stick with this.
Right? Yeah, I mean, do what works, I guess. Do what works. And to me, like I'm not into fan casting or anything, but I always thought that if they did a live action Simpsons movie, he would have been the perfect Homer Simpson. Now I guess
Funny.
the next one I got here is from Nerd Mom, and Nerd Mom says, just watched Tom Hanks in The Burbs not long ago with my kids. My oldest recognized him and was shocked at how young he looked then. And yeah, another perfect example. You know, Tom Hanks. Like I said, there's several actors out there who I mean I think they fit this model perfectly of people who really did a lot of comedies and then transitioned more into drama. And that's you know that's definitely amongst one of his greats was The Burbs. I absolutely loved that movie when I was growing up. It was great. It was one of the great ones.
Yeah. Um, the I think I watched it with my brothers, a couple of older brothers, and they had it on, and yeah, it was it was very entertaining. That's for sure. I do remember. I think. So I was a little bit younger. I think I remember getting scared by the, is it the furnace
Oh yeah.
uh, underneath the house?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when I look back at it now, I kind of laugh about that.
Yeah, and that was kind of a movie like where like everybody really shined in. I mean, hell, even Bruce Dern was funny in that movie, and I've never really taken him for like a funny or comedic kind of actor. Let's see the next one. Okay, well, the next one here, the Weekly Rant actually says, and he didn't really necessarily name anybody, but he says, speaking as an actor, comedy can be a more difficult craft. Most actors I have met and worked with are in it for the dramatic roles. As they develop, they discover they are great at comedy, and so establish themselves there first. Um, more move to the dramatic roles while comedy is open. And I'd say that's somewhat true. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people probably do want to get some of the bigger roles because I mean comedy don't win awards,
No, no, that's right.
which
They
is
don't win awards, and
yeah, which is
no,
kind of a
it's like,
shame. And but yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true, and I think, like I said, I think one of the biggest things about like with the comedies is the fact that you learn all those like those ad libbing things, working off just kind of working off of other people and things like that, playing off of their energy and stuff. I think that's definitely beneficial to anybody, whether you're in comedy or even drama.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And
I think you know, it's interesting this topic. I'm glad you made the stream about this because I do find it very interesting, and I not to get off what you were just saying too much, but um, I couldn't believe how much Tom Hanks has grossed, or his movies have grossed.
hmm
Have you looked at that at all?
no, no,
So I think it's $9.6 billion. His
wow,
movies have grossed. Yeah,
wow,
crazy.
that
I
yeah,
mean, I understand it, but yeah,
and that's what they've grossed.
yeah,
Wow. That's pretty dang good.
fine.
He's definitely a bankable actor. Especially now. He's I would say that he's obviously and probably been there for a while at the point where he can pick and choose his roles anytime he wants for any kind of role really because he's one of those actors he can kind of do it all.
Yeah, absolutely. He pretty much can. I mean, he did great voice acting in Toy Story, and
Mm-hmm.
then Polar Express, and he's got all those other movies we already talked about, and the list just goes on and on. I mean, if you tried to write them all down, you'd probably fill 2 pages almost.
Right.
Um, and I suppose his early stuff is the comedy stuff, but um, he's got a very, very good range. Did
Mm-hmm.
you ever watch Band of Brothers?
Band of Brothers. You know what? I didn't. I don't. That was the TV show on HBO, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I
he
know
didn't.
I've seen some of the episodes, but not a whole lot of them.
Yeah, okay. Um,
And there's
well, just
definitely
talking
some
about his
great actors there
range,
too.
he he didn't act in it, but he directed it. So there's another string to his bow. So
Right.
and that was a great show. That was a
Yeah.
great mini series. But he can just about do anything.
Yeah.
He's got the comedy, he's got the drama. I suppose action may be something he's kind of not touched on too much. I suppose like
Yeah. I
Apollo
think.
13 was actiony. Saving Private Ryan, I suppose, is his biggest one.
Yeah.
Action.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think he's really ever done anything where he's like an action star like that. I mean, I think. God, what is the closest thing I could think of that he'd done that would have been somewhat like? I mean, yeah, like you said, Band of Brothers and. Man, there was one other one. I mean, maybe, and they're not even action movies, but they have like action stuff in them. Is those ones that they did like on the Illuminati and all that stuff. Um, but even those were kind of more like dramatic kind of movies. Anyway.
Yeah, there were kind of a toned down action Indiana Jones, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
they took Indiana Jones and toned it down. And I don't know about did you read those books at all? The Da Vinci Code and those books?
No, I didn't. I never read those.
Oh, that's all right. Well, back when I used to read, I read the Da Vinci Code and a couple of the other ones, and before all the movie came out, I actually I was actually picturing the character as Harrison Ford because
Mm-hmm.
of the things that he does, and it's about finding this treasure and doing this and doing that, but he's still got a bit of action in there. So I was picturing Harrison Ford all the way through, and then it was Tom Hanks. So
Yeah.
I wasn't disappointed, but that's just who I had in my mind.
Yeah. Definitely. The next one we got here is from Mara Jade on Twitter, and she says John Krasinski from The Office has impressed me with his transition from comedy to more serious roles. And to go the opposite way, I would say Leslie Nielsen from serious roles to comedy gold in the Naked Gun movies. And those are definitely some other great examples as well. Because I know John Krasinski, yeah, The Office he was absolutely great in that TV show. I mean, obviously he wasn't able to carry it once Steve Carell was gone, but I thought he was really quite funny in those in that show. And then yeah, he's definitely. I mean, God, what is he like? In that he does that TV series. Was it the Jack Ryan? Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah, Jack Ryan, and he was in A Quiet Place as well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
and
is that one he directed?
yeah, he directed it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So that's a really good example because I thought he was really good. I think he's a really talented actor, and going into directing as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's an interesting transition, I think, for an actor, and not all of them can do it because, like I said before about the vision, it's one thing to be an actor, part of a movie, and you know your part, and you're kind of in your bubble, doing your script, doing your lines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they can shoot scenes well apart, months apart, things like that. So as an actor, you get to see your part of it. But when you move into directing, you've got to have that broad vision of what it's going to look like and how you're going to get it there. So some of them, I think, miss the mark. There's obviously ones that are really successful at it, but
Right.
there's a lot that miss the mark, and I think that's part of it.
Yeah, and that's got to be a hard transition to make too, especially if like you're going into like directing and something like that. And then I think that would be a hard thing to do because ultimately at some point you're probably surrounded by a bunch of yes men who never want to tell you that you're doing bad or you're not funny or anything like that.
Yeah, and especially you know, when you're a well-known director, you're going to get a lot of people like that probably that think that everything you say and every idea you have is gold, and they don't want to challenge it. And that's probably where it's important for those directors to recognize that and surround themselves with people they know are going to actually give them real feedback. Um, talking about vision, and I don't want to sidetrack too much, but um, the Alien movies, and particularly the first one,
Mm-hmm.
when I talk about vision with that, so the two creators of it originally, I think they were credited as the writers. They had the vision for it initially, and they didn't know how to bring the story to life on screen,
Mm-hmm.
and so they went around to a bunch of people. No studios wanted it. Then finally, someone picked it up. Studio picked it up, and Ridley Scott got a hold of it, and he loved it. And so from the time when he got his hands on the script and wanted to be a part of it, the studio doubled the budget, and then he put so much effort into finding the right people to create everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Germany or Switzerland, and found this like wacky Freud kind of artist to come up with all the concepts for the aliens, for the sets, and all that kind of stuff. And to me, that kind of effort and vision is what directors need to go for. And it was all practical sets and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was so much effort that went into it. But he talked about having a very clear vision of what he wanted to see, and
Right.
that's why when Alien came out, it was such a good movie, and it still is today,
Oh
because
yeah,
there was a vision, there was the effort, and he had the right people doing those jobs.
definitely. And this Mara Jade brings up Leslie Nielsen, and that's one I definitely never really looked into as far as anything, because when I was growing up, I mean. But I think by the time I was born, Leslie Nielsen was already doing full blown comedy, comedic parts for the most part. But just sitting here looking through, sort of through his filmography, yeah, he's definitely a great example of the exact reverse thing where he was doing more serious movies and then transitioned into the comedy landscape. And he's definitely one of those ones that, like Leslie Nielsen, he's one of my favorites. That dude actually cracks me up, and I wasn't really even aware that he, as a child especially, that how much dramatic acting he had actually done prior to getting into yeah, what was that? The police files, isn't that what it was called, or police squad? Before they got it,
Yeah, Police Squad. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it looks like he was in quite a bit of dramatic acting before doing that, and yeah, he's definitely a good example of somebody who transitioned from doing one to the other.
Yeah. Well, I actually don't know a lot of Leslie Nielsen stuff before Police Squad and Naked Gun and that sort of thing, because that's when I started to really notice him was doing the comedy. So
Right.
yeah, in all honesty, I don't really know much about um, that dramatic background, but I definitely agree that he's one of the funniest actors I've ever seen. I think he's his timing and his facial expressions.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
he plays that kind of dumb or naive character so well
Yeah.
that he just makes it hilarious. You know, like uh, in the Naked Gun movies, Nordberg's been Nordberg has been all beaten up and he's in a hospital bed,
Yeah.
and he walks in to see him, and Nordberg goes drugs, drugs, obviously because he's in pain, and Leslie Nielsen goes, oh well, you have to give me a little bit of time. Right? It's not really the right place for me to give you drugs. Just that kind of stuff. It's just the timing was perfect, and the writing too was good. But I agree, Leslie Nielsen was a great example.
Yeah, definitely. And then Dempsey Pilot brings up Steve Carell. Says, can't believe the transformation he's made. Never thought that the actor that played the bumbling idiots in Bruce Almighty and Anchorman would be an Academy Award nominated icon. And he's definitely an actor who's went from the comedic landscape into dramas as well. And he's another perfect example, like a Tom Hanks and things like that. Because like I remember, I think one of the first things I really remember seeing him in, aside from Bruce Almighty, was the 40-Year-Old Virgin. And I know he used to do like some of the anchor stuff on God, what was it, the TV show that's on Comedy Central. He used to be kind of like one of those in the field kind of anchorman types on that show too.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
And yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember ever actually seeing it myself, but I do know that he was. I think it was the oh man, what is that show? Is it the Daily Show with Jon Stewart? I think maybe. But yeah, he's definitely one of those actors. He's definitely transitioned from doing comedies to doing some serious dramas, and he's really great at doing all of those things as well. And again, I think a lot of that really does come out of the fact of, like, if you're doing like comedy or doing kind of even working with just people who are comedic actors, is gaining those chops of like people keeping you off balance, to kind of maybe challenge your abilities, and maybe to keep you from laughing, when they're doing something on screen when they shouldn't be laughing.
Mm. Yeah, it takes a real talent. It takes a real talent to get it right, and I suppose for anyone transitioning between genres, if you've had a particular genre, um, it takes a lot of talent. And I think like we sort of said before, the range that they have to be able to cover both, and a lot of them also cover both the drama and comedy within the same movie, which I think is again another string to add to the bow because um, you've got to change. A lot of these actors are trying to immerse themselves in the character, and so they've got to change between um, the comedy side and the dramatic side, which isn't. isn't easy always, and there's some who do it really well and some who probably miss the mark. But Steve Carell's a great example.
Definitely, definitely. And let's see. Let's go ahead and I see that we got a lot of people here in the chats, and I just want to say good morning to everybody. Normally, I'm a little more active in the chats and going through and reading everybody's chats, but as you guys can see, I have a guest on here today, and kind of makes the conversation a little bit easier. I mean, I'm not sure about you guys out there watching, but I think Stevie J has definitely helped bring more to this show, kind of up the quality a little bit as far as the conversation, instead of just seeing my handsome face on screen flapping my gums about a bunch of nonsense. Um,
Oh, but it is a handsome face.
I definitely, yeah, it's nice. It's nice to share the screen with somebody else. So but let's go ahead and get in here. I see we got a bunch of people in here. Nerdy Blurb TV, 19K Fox, Terrazon. Thank you for being here. Um, we got Kermit the Log, Wookie Lives Matters, LB from the Lonely Banter. Just a lot of great people, aggressively relaxing. A lot of great channel supporters here. Ryan Kennel. Um, Thank you all so much for being here. I can see we got a lot of chats going on here, but let's see. Nerdy Blurb says Tom Hanks is by far my favorite and probably most successful drama actor who started in comedy. And yeah, I think he's definitely one of my favorites. I think another one that I was bringing up was John Candy. Man, it was a real travesty when we lost John Candy because he's
Yeah.
definitely one of the greats, and definitely one of the guys. And thinking about him is Steve Martin as well. Steve Martin, and they both were together in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles,
I
which
was
is,
just gonna say
yeah,
that.
definitely that's one of those great movies that has so much comedy in it. But I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about it, I mean, it's one of those movies like it'll make you cry, just for some of the drama that's in it as well.
Yeah.
And when it's overall kind of more of a comedy, if you ask me. But I definitely make sure I try to watch that movie around every Thanksgiving.
Well, we don't have Thanksgiving here, but I still definitely try and watch it.
Yeah,
It's such a good movie. I love it,
yeah.
and the two of them work so well together as well.
Yeah, they do, and and that was another one I really kind of forgot about too. Is Steve Martin, because yeah, he definitely started out in comedy. I mean, hell, he used to do stand-ups, and
Yeah.
as well as Saturday Night Live and those things. I mean, one of the movies he was I absolutely loved with him, and I mean, aside from Roxanne, because we all know how good that was, but The Jerk.
I don't think I've seen that.
You've never seen The Jerk? Oh
No.
man, you have to go watch The
I'll have to
Jerk.
send that one in and check it out.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of movies. It's oh man, just just thinking about it is making me laugh. But he was obviously he's a white guy, but he was basically raised he was adopted and raised by a black family in the South. And just that whole premise in itself makes me laugh. But then he goes to the big city to try to find his find his family and make it. And oh man, it's definitely one you should put on your watch list of
All right,
must sees, because it is
I'll
absolute
put it on the list for sure.
hilarity. It's one of those movies that nowadays, if it was released, it would be it would be triggering a lot of people.
Well, it's not like it's hard to do that these days, but
Definitely
um,
not.
yeah, I'll put it on my list for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Make sure you check that one out. It's definitely a classic. Um,
Um, I just wanted to mention real quick, Kermit the Log. G'day, Kermit. He says, "I love Jim Carrey in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind." And when you raised this topic with me last week or whenever it was, Jim Carrey was one who came to mind as well. And he's a
mhm.
really polarizing actor. A lot of
Yes.
people really don't like him because of his over exaggeration and things like that.
Hmm.
But he's also someone who has, in my opinion anyway, done quite well at some of his either dramatic roles
Hmm.
or dramatic scenes in his movies. And I think for me, if I'm getting this right, one of the first times we saw that was in the Truman Show
Hmm.
um, with Ed Harris.
Yeah.
And, look, he gave us the over the top stuff and all the comedy in that as well. But the undertones of that movie and the themes of that movie were so much deeper. And really, they did a good job at the end of that, where he was really emotional. He was past it, and he just wanted to get out of there. and I think he acted it really well. I think he changed in that movie from comedy to dramatic very well. I think.
Yeah, I'd highly agree too. And and I remember, I think when that movie came out, there was a lot of people. There was a lot of division over that movie of people who liked it and people who didn't. And I think it's for that reason, because a lot of people, kind of just had those expectations that they wanted him to be funny, and then and then it really makes a huge dramatic shift into being a more dramatic and serious kind of thing. And
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I highly agree. I think that probably was when he made his shift, because I know, like, even another one of my favorites, like you were talking about Ben Stiller, is The Cable Guy. Um,
yeah,
that's one of my absolute favorite movies, and it's one of those ones too. Like, it's a perfect example of something that's funny and really makes these dramatic shifts into, like, whoa, like, what's
whoa,
going
what's
on
happening?
here? Yeah, you got like an emotionally disturbed guy here, and it's quite sad too at the same time, because you got this
Yeah,
guy who's really funny, and just like the whole premise, he doesn't have any friends and he's looking for friends, and he pretty much goes out of his way to, like, sabotage this guy's life, and just like other people out there that I'm sure that he's met, that you meet throughout the movie, where he's probably done these kinds of things with, just trying to reach out and look for friends. And then plus the overall message of, maybe we spend too much time in front of the TV and things like that.
yeah. I think they. I mean, with all movies, but particularly with comedy movies, if they can add some threads in like that to just give it a little more depth,
Mm-hmm.
then I think it just adds to the overall experience that we all have when we watch it, because we get the laughs. We also get something a little more that is intriguing or interesting along the way as well. It's not just sort of non-stop laughs and that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, for Jim Carrey, like I said, I guess he's polarizing, but for all of the over-the-top work he's done, I think he's done some really great dramatic stuff as well, for sure.
Definitely, definitely. And gosh, there was another one. Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell is another one of those actors too, where he's done that. Like, you brought up Walter Mitty, but I know Will Ferrell. He's always known mostly for his comedy, but then he did that movie Stranger Than Fiction, which was one that was it was kind of one of those movies too, where it starts off. It's a lot of it's. There's funny stuff in it, but it's really an overly dramatic movie. Even
Mm.
having Kristen Wiig in there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's funny the two of them together because they they've she can actually do drama too. We
Mm-hmm.
haven't talked about her at all, but um, she can do drama as well. She can tone it down, like a lot of the rest of them can
Right.
from comedy. I mean, I suppose her her comedy is less overt. It's not like an extroverted kind of comedy. Um, she's more of that quiet humor. That's
Right.
just her delivery is what makes it funny. But
Yeah.
yeah, she actually can do a really good job at the drama side of things as well. There's so many examples. Like every time you bring one up, I'm starting to, I'm trying to think of another one. Um,
Yeah, and like 19K Fox, he brings in another great one too. That I honestly, I feel bad I didn't even think of. He says Michael Keaton's a great comedic actor. He played Batman, Birdman, the Vulture, and he was great in The Founder. And I got to say, that's an other absolutely great one, because I remember, one of my favorites growing up as a kid was Mr. Mom, which he was really great in that one.
yeah, Duplicity as well. It was in Duplicity.
Oh yeah, Duplicity was a great one.
Yeah,
I actually seen that at the movie
absolutely right.
theater.
That's a good get by 19K Fox. That's a good point. Michael Keaton
Yeah.
is one that I'd sort of forgotten about, but yeah, he's another one who well, when he was announced to be Batman, people were scoffing at it because he was always seen as a comedy guy. So
Right. Yeah.
and
Which
to me, he's one of the best Batmans. He was
Yeah,
great.
yeah. I was gonna say he's definitely amongst one of my favorite Batmans that there's been. I mean, obviously there's Adam West, there's Michael Keaton, but I've got to say I think he's really taken the top spot for me as Will Arnett as Batman. Um,
Oh yeah,
because I really like the Lego Batman movie. That movie it's absolutely hilarious, and kind of it's one of those movies too. It's like it's dramatic, and it's a freaking kids movie. It's a freaking kids movie, and that's one of the
Yeah,
things I like taking my kids to the movie theater. I mean, I'm kind of raising a little movie buffs myself because like I grew up watching movies, setting my butt planted in front of a TV, and even going to the movie theater when I was a kid. And one of the things I like doing when I take my kids to the movies is not only just watching the movie, but sometimes watching them and seeing how they're reacting to a movie, to see if they understand and see if they get it when they're watching some of these movies. Because I see like the Toy Stories out there, the Batmans, the Lego Batmans, just some of these kinds of movies, seeing what they really get, and it's something I just love seeing that look in my kid's face when like one minute I'm sitting there watching them laugh, and then next thing you know something dramatic is happening on screen in a cartoon movie, and next thing you know I see them like really into it and they're emotional, and I mean I've seen tears in their eyes, and I.
yeah,
I think it's something that's absolutely great, and to me, I mean, not only is it great filmmaking, but it's also great acting, especially when it's a cartoon, because all you're getting is voices.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Um, and I don't really know much about voice acting, but I guess I know when it sounds good.
Right.
Um, but I think it would be quite hard, really, to get that right because you're just literally standing in front of a microphone. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for me, have you seen the new Lion King, the 2019 version?
I haven't seen that yet. I haven't really seen a whole lot of those live, well, I guess live action remakes.
Yeah. Well, look, I didn't like it. I took the kids. I took the kids to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love the 1994 version. I'm just going to say it's my favorite animation of all time um, because of the emotional impact that it had when I
Mm-hmm.
first watched it, and even now it's still a great movie. But
Right.
the reason I bring that up is the voice acting. So one of the things that I didn't like about the new version was okay, the voice actors are different. That's one thing. Um, James Earl Jones, he look, no disrespect to him, but he's 25 years older.
Mm-hmm.
So his voice doesn't have that same deep booming sound to it that it did in the
Right.
animated version.
Mm-hmm.
So in The Lion King, there were all these little things that just didn't work. And Beyonce, so great singer, fantastic singer. Voice acting, I don't think that's quite her thing. She sound you could tell she was trying to sound good, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh. Oh
And,
yeah, it
and she
does.
didn't sound natural at all.
Yeah,
Uh,
I totally get that because yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot harder thing for voice actors, and that's why I'm sure there's probably plenty of people out there who want to get into voice acting and may think it's easy, but I think there is a lot to be said for just subtleties in tone of voice and things like that when it comes to doing things like that, and you'll notice that like some of the better voice actors out there. I mean, when you see them like actually in studio recording, like they're really into it, like making
oh
facial
yeah,
expressions and things like that, just the same as if they were on camera doing it.
yeah, and I think um, the footage I've seen of Robin Williams doing his Aladdin voices was he was almost literally being the genie in the studio. He's like dancing around and moving around and very animated.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm glad you brought Robin Williams back up because he's definitely one of those people we surely haven't talked about enough here today because he's definitely I mean, maybe aside from Leslie Nielsen, he's one of those kind of people that's like definitely an older school actor who really made this transition, and he did it really well. I mean, you can look at his body of work, and I mean, how many bad movies has this guy done? And he's done everything from the comedies to the dramas. I mean, you even look at a movie like Mrs. Doubtfire, which is absolutely great movie with a lot of great messages, and it's definitely comedic. It's dramatic. Um, and again, just like John Candy, it was we really lost a great one when we lost him. That's for sure.
yeah, definitely. He's got so many really good movies.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I don't want to pick a favorite or anything, but Goodwill Hunting was probably one of my top three of his. I think
Yeah.
he did that role so well.
Right.
He completely believable. He was just enthralling to watch. While he was talking, you just wanted to listen.
Right.
And he had some comedic lines in that movie, but the delivery was very reserved for Robin Williams.
Right.
And I think that the way he did it was why, well, I mean, obviously, but the way he was able to keep that sort of exaggeration he normally has reserved is probably why he ended up winning the Oscar for it, the supporting actor Oscar for it, because yeah, I couldn't take my eyes off it when when he was talking in that movie.
Yeah, and you actually, we're sitting here talking. You're talking about that movie. I'm starting to get goosebumps here because yeah, that was definitely one of his better performances for sure. And because like thinking of Robin Williams, when I think of Robin Williams, I don't think of like some sort of tough guy or anything like that. But in that movie, when he's playing that role and everything, having to deal with Matt Damon's character and everything, like I kind of felt like okay, like this is a dude I don't really want to mess with. Like he seemed like he was
Yeah,
definitely one of those streetwise kind of dudes, and even you even see in the movie, that even Matt Damon's character, he doesn't, Will Hunting, he doesn't, he takes him seriously, and I think
yeah,
that's a
for
true
sure.
testament to Robin Williams' work, definitely.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Look, he performed it so well, and kudos has to go to the writers as well because the way that they explored his character, as in Robin Williams' character in that movie, I think his name was Sean.
Hmm.
The way they explored the character in very short scenes, really. There was the painting on his wall, and he talked about his wife and stuff like that. So it was only very short scenes, really, but it gave such a depth to his character and gave us his background
Hmm.
that we kind of knew exactly where he was coming from. And it was like, oh, you've had this really strong character in the first act with Will Hunting, and he's kind of, he bulldozes everybody. And then we're introduced to Sean, and all of a sudden it's like, well, hang on a minute. There's someone who can actually go toe to toe with him, both intellectually and I suppose physically as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely one of. Yeah, I mean, I can't even express how great of a movie that really is. And God, I think wasn't that even written by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I think it was something they worked on together, which really is kind of what made what kind of. I mean, they had careers before that, but I think that was definitely one of the things that helped launch their careers into, I guess, started launching it into the stratosphere of where they're at now.
yeah. I'm pretty sure that was the first one. That Dogma was another one that was pretty successful, but I don't know. I don't know whether that was before or after Good Will Hunting. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I can't remember either. I think it was definitely after, but probably not too soon after.
yeah,
Not too soon after that, because I think that was when they kind of started getting a bit bigger. Because I think they were making some of the funny references during that movie. But yeah, that was, and Kevin Smith, he's another good one too. And Kevin Smith is one of those kind of directors where he's always done stuff that's more comedic. I would really love to see him do a film that is more dramatic, because like Chasing Amy it kind of walked that line of comedy and drama where it's
yeah,
more of a comedy, but he's one of those directors, and he's one of those ones that always doubts himself and thinks that he's like this terrible filmmaker and that he's not that great. And to me, I mean, I think he's one of the better ones out there because just I think it's just in his writing style and what he does within his movies.
yeah. I would agree. I think you're right. The list goes on of these guys that um, either have and girls that have more talent than we sort of realize or that we stop to think about.
Hmm.
And he's one of them as well. I'd agree. Chasing Amy was definitely on the line of drama and comedy, entertaining as well.
Yeah.
Uh, I just wanted to quickly 19K Fox brought up in the chat, and it was a movie I actually wrote down the other day about Robin Williams, which was Dead Poet Society.
Hmm.
doesn't, you know, doesn't get talked about a lot, obviously these days because it was a long, long time ago. But
Right.
as far as dramatic roles go, that's right up there with Good Will Hunting as well, performance wise.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, God, didn't that one? I think that one won some awards too. But yeah, that was definitely a great one and filled with just a phenomenal cast as well.
Yeah,
Definitely. And I haven't seen, I probably haven't seen that movie in uh, probably since around the time it came out. But yeah, it's definitely a great one. But
yeah. But the list goes on. Good Morning Vietnam as well.
yeah.
It's
Oh man. And you know what's funny is that movie came out when I was a kid, and I even like I used to like I said I grew up watching movies, and I used to love all these kinds of movies, and even though I didn't really necessarily understand them, I think it's just a true testament to the
yeah,
writing and the acting that's in them, to get a lot of
yeah,
those dramatic points across, even to somebody who was a child when that came out.
yeah. That's right. And then you watch it later on when you're grown up a bit, and you're like, oh, I kind of get those deeper points now. But it was
Yeah,
still entertaining before.
definitely. Definitely. Well, it's already after the 9 o'clock hour. God, I can't believe it's already been this long. But I mean, we could probably sit here and talk about this all day. But I don't want to keep you that much longer because, like I said, I know you're. It's definitely the middle of the night where you're at. But
Yeah,
I want to thank you for coming on today, and maybe hopefully we can get you here on the show again because it's been very fun having you on the show. And like I said, I can tell it was great having you on, and I'm glad some other people had suggested it, bringing you on as well because you are really well spoken, and you definitely know your stuff when it comes to the films. And as you can see, we had this great conversation, and I don't think either one of us really did any research for it.
yeah. You're probably right. I mean, I did a quick Google of Tom Hanks and just reminding myself of some of the movies he was in because the list is so long. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, you're right. I could probably talk with you all day about this stuff and not run out of material. That's for sure.
Right.
Um, and I really appreciate you inviting me on. It means a lot to be invited onto anybody's show, and I always appreciate it. I love movies; they're my passion. Um, I don't say that I'm the be all and end all of movies or anything. I really like them. I've watched a lot of them, and I kind of try to give my breakdown on them. So, and I really enjoy talking about them like this, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. Me too. And yeah, like I said, I could go on about this stuff all day by myself, but it's always a lot better when I have somebody else who is knowledgeable and definitely knows their information as well. So, since we're getting ready to go ahead and bring this to an end, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you on your social medias and things?
Yeah, cheers. So the YouTube channel is Stevie J Reviews, and you can find me at Twitter. What's my handle again? Oh, at sorry, at Tango_44. So find me over there. I've got a couple more videos coming out this week, so check those out. I think one of them's actually my first first anime review, the very first anime I've ever watched, which is Death Note. So that one's coming out soon. And the other thing I've got happening is this weekend I've actually got a live stream. Um, my brain can't work out the timings right now with the time zones, but it's this Saturday and it's going to be with the weekly rant, and we are going to be
Oh,
respectfully debating The Last Jedi. So I'm saying it's a bad movie, change my mind, and and the weekly rant is going to respectfully try to change my mind. So it should be really interesting.
that
I'm looking forward to it.
That will be interesting. That will be interesting. Yeah, I know the weekly rant. Yeah, he's definitely a good guy, and yeah, and I was gonna say, and I know that he definitely feels differently than a lot of people do when it comes to some of those kinds of things, like the Last Jedi representation in films and things like that. So that will definitely be something very interesting. I'll make sure to be on to check that out. And you say that's going down on Saturday?
Yeah, so it's going to be. I think it might actually be a little early in the morning for you guys. It's going to be 9 p.m. here, which I think. Oh man, the time zones are frying my brain, but I think that's going to be mid morning, like as in 4 or 5 in the morning, maybe. It's gonna be pretty early on what'll
Okay.
be Saturday morning
All right.
over there.
Yeah, well, I'll do my best to make sure to check that out because that actually sounds like that actually sounds like a really great show that I want to tune into. So, anybody out there watching right now, make sure that you go check out Stevie J here on YouTube. Go follow him over there on Twitter. Make sure you get to his channel, subscribe, and definitely make sure that you check out that show. Very interesting show that it sounds like he's going to be having on Saturday. Again, I'd like to thank Stevie J Reviews so much for being here on the show today, and I want to thank you all so much for tuning in here into the Second Street Marvel today. Now, if you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed and click that little bell so you get those notifications anytime I've uploaded new content. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you don't, give it a thumbs down. I honestly don't care about those things, but most importantly, make sure that you share it with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here on the Second Street Marvel. You all have a very good day. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you in the next video. Later. There we go. Okay, can you hear me now? All right. Whew, man. Yeah, that hour went pretty quick, man.